Good day, everyone. In today's video, we're going to be having this weird position. It is white to move, and we have to figure out a way to mate the black king, although there are too many pawns surrounding it. So you can move the queen, you can move the king, you can move the rook, or you can castle because it is a viable option. The king and rook did not move. So what would you play here for white? Now, I don't want you to find only the first move because the first move it actually makes sense. It's really obvious. But then you have to figure out how you're going to be checkmating the black king. It's going to take you like probably a minute or two to calculate the entire sequence of moves. But go ahead, pause the video and try to find the sequence. Okay, so you probably saw that we have to attack this pawn on f3 because we're trying to checkmate the black king right there. We cannot attack this pawn twice because the rook cannot really target the pawn in any way. So the rook can target this pawn. So we can either play rook h3, but that's going to lead us to many problems, including a check. We have to move the king and then another check. The queen will be lost, and whenever we take, check, takes. There are too many pawns that black cannot really deal with, and it's not going to be good for white in this position. So it's not rook to h3. Now you might say, well, we can play a rook f1, but there is no use of rook f1 because the king's still stuck here, so it's going to lead to many problems, including like d2 check. The king is forced to move, but it cannot move. We have to sack the queen for it, and that's not good as well. Black can just move the pawn, any kind of check, the king can move, and then the pawns are going to storm, and black will make a queen. So you probably saw that the best move, it is actually the castle. That is the first move. Now, clearly this is a checkmate threat, so either black has to push f2 or to play e2. Now e2 looks really good because that's a fork, right? Well, white can actually play in this position queen d2. Yes, giving away the rook. You might say, well, what is that? Well, we can, after black takes, the rook makes a queen, we actually take. The king cannot move. None of these pawns can move. Only one pawn can move, which is this one, f2. And now we actually take with the king. Yes, the king still cannot move, but he only has one move, which is f3. After this f3 move, we play queen to e1 check. Yes, we're allowing the king to run, but we should not allow the king to run further, because if the king managed to run, this is not a win for us anymore. So we have to play queen to g1, make sure that the king cannot escape. He cannot play a move like e4, trying to escape the other way, because that's definitely a checkmate in one. That's not going to work for black. So after queen to g1, black will, try to play like something like d2, trying to make a queen, but we have a check on g3. The king's forced to go back, and queen takes f3 checkmate. So let's go back right from the beginning here. That's why he should not take us here, because it's going to lead to an eventual checkmate. Okay, what if he played f2, for example, a check? Now we take with the rook. He cannot make a queen because that's right away, that's a checkmate, right? He cannot do that. And the threat, our threat right now with the white piece is we're trying to sacrifice the rook. He will take with the pawn, and that is checkmate in one. But he cannot move. The only move that he has is the move f3. After the move f3, what do we actually do here? We cannot sacrifice because we can just take like this, and it's not good for us. We're going to be losing this. So we play actually a rook to h2. Yes, this check is not possible. We can take it. And this check is not possible. We can also take it. If he pushed the pawn, for example, let's say he decided to play the move f4. See, this move f4, he's trying to make a run for it. So all we have to do is to play rook h5, make sure that the king will not run. He doesn't have any kind of moves. If he played the move this, it's going to be checkmate. If he gave us a check with the pawn, we take with the king. It is not a stalemate. Still not a stalemate. He can still make this queen, or he can push. If he pushed here, all we have to do in this position, and I have to let you try to find this on your own. What would you play here with white? You cannot give this check because the king will run, and it's gonna be really annoying trying to to stop it, especially with these two pawns really close to promoting. So what would you play? You actually have to make a quiet move, just a simple rook g5. The king still cannot move. The pawn cannot. None of the pawns can move. Only the pawn can move. It is this one, and then we take it, right? And after he moves to the only square, king f4, we go queen takes e5, checkmate. Okay, so now we discuss one sequence of events, which is the start move e2, right? But what if he did not play e2? What if he played, for example, f2 check? Well, we actually take it. You're like, what? But what if he takes us? Well, we take back, and this is checkmate in one. If he pushed here, or he pushed there, it doesn't make any sense because it's still checkmate in one. So he cannot do that. Okay, now you might say, after this castles, you know what? What if he did not play f2 or e2? Because these are the only moves that black has, either f2, e2, or d2. We've seen both of these two moves. Now we're going to see, what about d2? Well, d2 is very obvious that we want to play a check, queen b1, right? Now he cannot move the king. Of course, he needs to block with the pawn, and then we play queen b4, and then can you see the checkmate in one after he plays d4? Nice. It is queen to b7, checkmate. So it's a really odd position, but the only solution for this is to think outside the box and to castle in this position, which is really obvious, but then try to deal with the pawns pushing and sacrificing the rook in order to get in with the king and checkmate the black king. Hopefully you enjoyed this puzzle, and I'll see you again with another one.